Hi, I'm Andrea McAfee. I am the director of the Hawaii Surrogacy Center. I would say that, when we have a contract set up, we're looking at both the interests of the surrogate and the intended parents. And so when we look at things like lost wages, we want to make sure that we are setting them to fit a parent's budget. It can't be kind of an unlimited open expense. And there are insurances that we can take out that help intended parents cover the cost of lost wages, especially if a surrogate is under bed rest. But we do have to put some kind of reasonable cap in there so that parents aren't faced potentially with an unexpected bill of thousands and thousands of dollars. But we do keep it reasonable. I think that a surrogate shouldn't come into the contract process being worried that if she were to go under bed rest or she's attending appointments that she's going to be left in lurch. We're going to make sure that she's covered and reimbursed, and if she's taking time off from work, that she will get her wages. We do have to put a cap in there to make sure to protect the parents as well. Compensation definitely can be negotiated. I would say that looking at the average compensation across the nation, we're actually kind of in the middle. We are not as high as states like California. California has extremely high compensation rates. And this is because there is a huge surrogacy industry there, as well as kind of some legal framework that has made surrogacy very appealing, especially to international parents in California. So that kind of supply and demand has driven up a lot of costs. So a lot of agencies, especially national agencies, have dealt with kind of their recruiting challenges by offering higher and higher compensation. I personally don't think that's the right approach. And so, at our agency, we make sure to keep compensation pretty reasonable right in the middle. For a first time surrogate, that's $40,000. And if you're an experienced surrogate, you can get $5,000 to $10,000 more as part of your base. You should have a separate attorney when it comes to putting together a gestational carrier agreement. The intended parents need an attorney to represent them. The surrogate needs a separate attorney to represent her. However, our agency is a little different in the sense that we actually cover all the legal retainer costs for all the attorneys. We do this for intended parents to keep their costs kind of contained. It also allows us to select attorneys that are experts in this area. We tend to work with a set number of attorneys that are very familiar with how gestational carrier agreements should be structured. And that ensures that intended parents later on in the process don't have any trouble finalizing their parentage work and getting their names on the birth certificate, because that contract is reviewed by a judge as part of those parentage agreements. So because of that, we want to make sure we're selecting the right attorneys. And so, if you as a surrogate are bringing, your brother's friend in who's a great attorney, he may be very nice and extremely competent in what he does, but he may be a real estate attorney or even a general family law attorney, may not be well equipped to deal with all the nuances that are in a gestational carrier agreement. So that's why we provide them as an agency. We do conflict checks. So, there are a number of attorneys that we work with. You don't have to work with only one. And sometimes, there may be a conflict that's in place for whatever reason. And if so, we have a pretty deep bench and we can look back and refer you to somebody else that we work with regularly. So when you're on bed rest, this is physician mandated bed rest. So your attending OB or the reproductive endocrinologist that did your transfer will issue out documentation that states that you are under physician mandated bed rest. This is usually because we're seeing some type of complications or risks that we're trying to mitigate by having you take it very easy. This is not just, I want to take it easy, because being pregnant is hard. So, what happens is you would work with your case manager. And once you are under bed rest, you would submit all the documentation, whether it is lost wages, time off that you've taken from work, childcare expenses, housekeeping expenses. We would manage all that documentation and submit for your reimbursement through your escrow account. Sometimes parents do take out bed rest insurance. If that's the case, what we do is we will actually work with the insurer to get those claims processed, but we don't want surrogates to have to wait because insurance claims processing can take 30 days or more. So the surrogate would be reimbursed through their escrow account once a week, so long as she is still on bed rest. And then when we process the claim for the bed rest insurance, the intended parents are reimbursed back through to their escrow account. So that's how we kind of handle all of that to make sure that a surrogate's not, kind of in a lurch without her wages while she's on bed rest, and the parents are able to fully utilize the insurance that they took out originally. In your contract that you sign with your parents regarding your compensation, you're being compensated for the act of carrying for them. You're not being compensated for a positive pregnancy test. So, because of that, we break that up, that base compensation, across 8 months to correspond to the 8 remaining months of the pregnancy after we get a fetal heart rate. So once a month, just like a paycheck, so long as you remain pregnant, you are given $5,000 if you are a first-time surrogate. So we certainly support birthing persons in various choices that they make, especially in terms of comfort measures and certain levels of intervention, but you are carrying someone else's child. And so while we absolutely support birthing centers and certified nurse midwives and the presence of doulas in the delivery room, a home birth carries a lot of additional risks, and including, risks not only to yourself but to the baby. And because of that, we just can't risk it. We just can't risk. This is the intended parent's child, not yours. So we will do what we can to be as supportive as possible. We put together a birth plan. Your case manager works with you and your intended parents as a surrogate to put together a birth plan that talks about comfort measures during labor, what level of intervention you're comfortable with. And then for the intended parents, they have all kinds of choices in terms of the care of their baby after they are born. So your contract does talk about expressing breast milk. And the language that's in there is very flexible. It says basically if the surrogate is physically and emotionally able to, and the intended parents wish for that, she can express breast milk for them. Surrogates are compensated typically at a weekly rate of anywhere between $150 and $250 a week for their efforts, as well as being reimbursed for any supplies. So, whether you need a different, size flange or you need, storage bags, any kind of supplies that you need would be covered by your intended parents, as well as shipping costs, because often, surrogates will pack up and mail frozen milk to their parents. So that is definitely all covered under your contract. You are compensated for it. You get that reimbursement when you submit it to your case manager once a week, as often like we'll process kind of breast milk allowances that way. And then, if you want to stop, it's your choice, because that language that's in your contract says, hey, I'm going to give my best effort, but at some point I'm done. That's totally fine. I think that a lot of intended parents are just very grateful to have breast milk, especially initially, because you're getting that liquid gold and that colostrum for baby's immune benefits. But if you aren't able to, or you dry up because your body's like, hey, where's the baby? That happens. We do have a lactation support person that will work with both surrogates and intended parents throughout kind of their journey as they want to, exclusively pump and feed by bottle or other methods of feeding. And so she's able to work with surrogates as well, especially if they're nervous about exclusively pumping, because a lot of them haven't exclusively pumped during their own pregnancies. So a C-section has to be approved by the attending OB. And so you can't just say, hey, I feel like having a C-section. It's a major surgery. It comes with risks, and the attending OB has to decide that it's medically necessary. If, we're looking at kind of convenience and scheduling, we will do scheduled inductions so long as it's deemed safe, and baby is well positioned and we're kind of far enough along. A lot of parents do like that, especially if they have to travel for the delivery, because there's always this fear that they're going to kind of miss the birth of their baby. I will say in 15 years, it's never happened. But, we totally get that concern that, you're going to miss your baby's delivery. So long as it's safe, we certainly would support a surrogate and their intended parents deciding to put a date on the calendar for an induction. It goes generally quite well because, her body knows what it's doing. It's not like a first time mom having an induction. And so where they're softening the cervix or breaking waters, and then, 5 or 6 hours later, baby has arrived. So there are kind of limitations that are in the contract. Certainly the surrogate is being protected. We want to make sure that she remains healthy. If there are complications or she has some longer term health issues, there is a period postpartum that the intended parents would support kind of additional care that she needs. Some contracts say 3 months, some contracts say 6 months, but it certainly is not set for perpetuity. Additionally, there is insurance that can be taken out, such as long-term care insurance, that some intended parents will opt for in their contracts, and that could go towards long-term care and rehab bills if she did have significant complications and needed some long-term care. But there is definitely a limit. You can't, 2 years later, say your back hurts and you want your intended parents to pay for orthopedic surgery. There is at the beginning of your contract a pretty hefty statement about the risks that you're accepting when you kind of join this process. We do detail that out because we want people to understand there are risks. This is not a moneymaker. It's not an easy way to make money either. All of that has to come into consideration when you're looking at becoming a surrogate. Pregnancy can cause dental problems for sure. I think that if a surrogate is aware of that based on her past history, I mean, it certainly could be part of the expenses. I will say that the insurance plans that we obtain for our surrogates, as well as most of the plans that we evaluate that are kind of deemed surrogacy friendly, do have a dental kind of component of it. And so I think that if it's a concern to the surrogate, it's something that we can talk to the intended parents about and make sure we get the right insurance plan in place so that she has excellent dental coverage as well as her medical coverage. And those issues can be addressed during the pregnancy and in the period postpartum. I would say that, surrogacy is not a heavily regulated industry. In fact, it's very, very limited in its regulation. Because of that, we as agencies and professionals have had to kind of set our fees based on, what the market says. And that kind of adjusts depending on all kinds of circumstances. Our agency as a whole has always focused on kind of affordability and access. And so kind of keeping that in mind is like one of our central core values. I've always tried to set our price very reasonably. And I'm not okay with, preying on, the fears of intended parents. I mean, I think I've seen probably over the last, I'd say about 5 years or so, a lot of other agencies kind of coming up with marketing language and packages for families that use words like guaranteed or assured. After you've gone through infertility for decades, you want somebody to tell you that something is a guarantee because unfortunately nothing is guaranteed. And this process takes so much time, emotional energy, and huge financial investments. And so I think that, there are some agencies that do charge much higher prices because they know that somebody sees the word guarantee and they're going to go for it. It's like an all-inclusive, vacation package or whatever, you're just buying it all and you feel like you're getting a value because this is kind of this hyper inflated thing that you're going to sign up for. And I would just caution intended parents to really kind of look at all the fine print and see kind of what they're investing in, what are the terms, what happens if things don't work out. It doesn't make sense if an agency offers you this kind of assured unlimited package when you have only 2 embryos. They know you only have 2 shots. You're not going to get any more. And you're basically paying for like 8 tries in the fees that they're charging you. And so if you kind of do that logical math and take that loaded language out of a guarantee, I think that you can kind of look at different agencies and really assess if it's worth it to invest that much in the surrogacy process. Yeah, so I mean, we do stay abreast of all the different policy and legal developments. I mean, it is an ever-changing area. And so we're always looking at, making sure that the legal protections are in place for intended parents and surrogates. Things like the ruling in Alabama certainly cause a lot of disruption. And so we're taking a very cautious stance in the sense of I'm just waiting for the dust to settle to see kind of what the implications are. I think that kind of the immediate implications are from those of us that work professionally in the field, we are insured entities. We carry insurance and we are concerned with things like liability. And so if an insurer looks at this, they are seeing just a whole bunch of red flags for risk, right? And so that then makes our policies and our insurance policies that allow us to operate, it throws a lot of things up in the air. So for now, I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens. I would love for, IVF and other reproductive technologies to be encoded and protected in terms of state regulations. Yeah, I don't think that we can get that in place at a federal level, but certainly at a state level, because, if our focus is to help people complete their families, something like this is really counterintuitive. Even if you define the embryo as a child, this is hope in a vial, right? And so, like, we want to make sure to protect that, but by not giving it a chance to grow into a baby in someone's arms and be brought earthside, by having a ruling like this be put in place, it's completely opposite of what we're intending to do. So I'm hopeful that, the right protections are put in place, and that, certainly professional entities are liable for not following the right procedures and safety procedures to keep embryos secured, and stored properly. I mean, that's something that I absolutely am in support of, but you can do that while also not taking IVF and other procedures off the table by making kind of these strange rulings. We would always find a solution. So even though we are Hawaii Surrogacy Center, we work with people from around the world, whether they're military families that have come to the island, or international families, or just folks that have moved from the mainland. So we deal all the time with embryos and surrogates and intended parents in all kinds of different locations. So if somebody was in a state that was restrictive or suddenly restrictive about their activities, our goal would be to get those embryos out of that state safely and into another location that had the right legal environment and the right legal protections for everybody. And then from there, we'd be able to construct a contract, and have a contract under either Hawaii law or California law, Oregon, wherever it is, outside of that state in question, and be able to kind of continue on. So, we're always just kind of focused on solutions in terms of, like, dealing with this on a practical day-to-day basis. And so, yeah, we'd move the embryos out and get them to a place where everyone would be able to continue on with their cycle without an issue. Definitely, it's hard as a surrogate when you're trying to research. You're looking at Google reviews, you're joining different surrogacy groups, and where people have very strong opinions about what agencies should and should not do, and their level of involvement. I would say that, you should apply to multiple and see how they respond to you. Our agency, we are kind of a mid-sized agency. We're not super teeny tiny, kind of one woman show, but at the same time, we're not one of the big nationals. We're right kind of in the sweet spot. That allows us as an agency to provide really professional support, but at the same time, it is very much like personal. We have all the right tools there in terms of, like, our background systems to keep things really well organized. Um, but at the same time, you will know your case manager really well. She will be your friend. You will know your intended parents. The people that are part of our program and join our program as parents are just really special, sweet people that want a great relationship with their surrogate, and don't view this as a transactional thing. So I think it's important as a surrogate, when you're doing kind of evaluation of agencies, not only to look at the compensation package, and how a journey is managed from the surrogate standpoint, but also, how does your agency treat the intended parents they're working with? Look at what the intended parents pay, and see, okay, like, what are my parents investing in this? And so I think that's actually really important too, is to look at both sides of the equation, and see how an agency is treating all the parties, and from there, kind of decide what you think is a good fit for you. We've tried to build our team out of people that have been through this personally in one way or another, and have been involved in, reproductive medicine, and have been surrogates themselves, have been intended parents themselves, have gone through IVF, et cetera. And I think that's important that all of our team members are that way, because it gives us a really kind of a unique perspective on the emotional and physical toll that all of this takes. And so we're able to treat intended parents and surrogates with a lot of empathy, and show them a lot of kindness in a really stressful process. So it's just important to really look at all aspects of an agency. And a good way to test that out is apply, and see who reaches out to you, and see how do they respond. Is it all very cookie cutter, or are you talking to real people who want to get to know you and see if surrogacy is a good fit for you?